Welcome to this video lecture. Myself Atul Kumar, working as a assistant professor in Department of Computer Science, Rajiv Gandhi Memorial, Government College, Joginder Nagar. So this is the lecture number 3 based on entity relationship model. In the previous video lectures of ER model, we have discussed about entity relationship model introduction, what is entity, what is attribute, and what are the different types of attribute. So in this video lecture I will discuss about relationships. So it is basically the association between two or more entities. So for example, we have employees are assigned a project. So here assigned is called as a association between employee and a project. So assign is the relationship between employees and a project. Author works for publisher. So work for is a relationship between author and a publisher. Similarly, student attends classes. So attend is a relationship between student and a class. Branch has staff. So has is the relationship between branch and the staff. So as the relationships are identified, they are classified in terms of degree and cardinality. So what is a degree of a relationship? It is basically a number of entity set participating in the relationship. If we have one entity that is participating in the relationship, that relationship is called unary relationship. If the number of entity participating in relationship is 2, then it is binary. If 3, then it is ternary, and if 4, then it is quaternary relationship. So there are 4 type of degree of relationship. One is unary, binary, ternary, and quaternary, based on how many number of entities that are participating in the relationships. So what is a unary relationship? It is the basically association exists within single entity type. So the degree here, only a single entity is associated, so the degree is 1. So we have only one entity associated in unary relationship, so the degree here is 1. For example, suppose while opting a course, we have to choose a subject, but for choosing a subject we have to take another subjects. For example, if the student is taking mathematics, he has to take computer science along with that mathematics subject. So in the diagram you can see here there is only one entity, that is a subject, and requires is the relationship between a subject with the other subject. For example, if a student is taking mathematics as a subject, so he must have to take computer science as a other subject. So it is a unary kind of relationship. As the subject we have only a single entity, and uh, the relationships having a single entity is called as unary relationships. Next we have binary relationship, in which we have only two entities. So the degree here is 2. When the association exists between two entity type, then the relationship is called as binary relationship, and the degree is 2, as there are two entities associated in these type of relationships. So this type of relationship is most common in real world. For example, in this diagram we have two entities, one is employee and other is a project, and the relationship between these two is assigned. So every employee is assigned a project. So here two entities are involved, one is employee and other is project. So this kind of relationship is called as binary relationship. Next, ternary relationship, it is the association between three entities, and this kind of relationships are rarely used in real world. So here the number of entities involved is 3, and in the diagram we can see here there are three entities. One is employee, branch and job, and the relation between these three entities is works for, as it is rarely used in real world. And if we want these kind of relationships in real world, we have we have to separate or divide these relationships in binary relationship, as I have discussed before what is binary relationship. Next we have quaternary relationship. So as the name suggests, it consists of four entity types. So there the degree of quaternary relationship is 4, as there are 4 degrees entities associated in quaternary relationship. So the degree is 4. Also these kind of relationships are rarely used in real world, and they are decomposed into one or more binary relationship. This one is the diagram or example of quaternary relationship. Here we have four entities: teacher, student, subject and course, and the relation between these four entities is studies. So this kind of relationship having four entities associated is called as quaternary relationship. Next is, what is connectivity and cardinality in terms of relationships of ER model. So connectivity is how many instances of one entity are associated with how many instances of other entity in the relationship, and cardinality is how many instances of one entity are related to single instance of another entity. So here bo- uh, in both side there are number of instances of one entity and number of instances of other entity, they are associated. But in case of cardinality, here there are number of instances in case of one entity and a single instance in case of another entity. So there are many kind of relationships between two entities, like one to one, one to many, many to one and many to many. So firstly, what is one to one cardinality? So here the instance in entity type suppose A is associated with exactly one instance of entity type B. So suppose in the diagram we have one entity type student and other is a project, and the relationship is carried out, means student is carrying a project. So every student is carrying different project or working on different project. So this kind of relationship is called as one to one. And the next example is next is one to many. So in case of one to many, one instance of entity type A is associated with many or any number of instances of entity type B. So as an example, we have two entities, one is department and other is faculty, and the relationship between these two is employees. Here you can see the one instance is associated with many instances of other entity type faculty. For example, here department D3, it is a instance of entity type A. It is associated with three instances F2, F3 and F4 of faculty entity. So this kind of cardinality is called as, or this type of relationship is called as one to one, one to many relationship. Next we have many to one relationship, and it is reverse of one to many relationship. And here any number of instances of entity type A is associated with at most one instance of another entity type B. So here suppose the same example, we have a faculty as an entity and a department as an entity, and the relationship between these two is are employed. So many faculties are employed in one department, so this kind of relationship is called as many to one relationship. Next we have many to many relationships. Here the number of instances of entity type A is associated with any number of instances of entity type B. So as an example, suppose we have two entities, author and book, and the relationship between these two is rights. So here we can see in the diagram many entities or many instances of A are associated with many instances of V. For example, A1 is associated with B1, also A2 is associated with B1, also B1 is associated with only A2. Similarly we have B4 that is associated with A2 and A3. So many instances of this entity A is associated with many number of instances of this entity type B, and this kind of relationship is called as many to many, that is m raised to n relationship. Next we have a directions of relationship. So there are four directions. So as we see, they in one to one we can, the direction lines are arrows on both sides. In case of one to many, we have direction line in case of one side on the side where we represent only one. So in case of many to one, we have a arrow line in case of, or arrow in case where we represent only one. In case of many to many relationship, the direction line is a single simple line without any kind of arrows. So thanks for watching this video lecture.